Today I'm going to make a fresh veggie cacciatore. The last one that I made was made with frozen vegetables. This is how I make it when I make them with fresh vegetables. Of course, I have a whole bunch of mushrooms. I have about that much cabbage, maybe about a little bit less than a fourth of a cabbage, a whole bell pepper, about a half of a summer squash. That was a big one, so I'm just using half. I have a whole zucchini, but it's a small one. There's a little thing of garlic down there. I used the whole thing. One pretty good sized onion and a carrot. So those are my vegetables that I'm going to use in the fresh one. And then I have some seasonings. Of course, the Italian seasoning, I use about 2 tablespoons of that. It's kind of important that you use a lot of that Italian seasoning. Cayenne pepper. I'm not going to use as much, maybe about a quarter of a teaspoon, because I'm actually going to use my Tony Chachere's in this one as well. That's my Creole seasoning mix that I use. I get the light. It doesn't have as much sodium in it at all. And then I have granulated garlic, smoked paprika. The garlic, a whole teaspoon. Smoked paprika, about a half a teaspoon. Onion powder, a teaspoon. And then the balsamic vinegar, I use about a tablespoon and a half of that. So these are the ingredients for my fresh veggie cacciatore. I keep forgetting to add this part, but I do put a teaspoon of Better Than Bouillon, the organic veggie base, with a cup of water to make my stock. Thank you for witnessing while I'm losing my mind. I do use a can of these diced tomatoes. If I had 2 cans, I would use 2 cans in this because I like a lot of the sauce, but only have 1. So, all right, let's get to chopping. This is important to note. Whenever I use carrots as part of my seasoning vegetables, I grade them. So I have this little thing right here. I use the bigger size here because, see, when I'm done, I have my carrots that I use as my seasoning vegetables. I don't use the small side. I use the bigger side right there. And then it provides for me some nice shredded carrots to use with my onion, garlic, and bell pepper that I put in my veggie stock for my seasoning vegetables. This is what it looks like when my seasoning vegetables are doing their thing. If you are not allergic to celery, celery is a wonderful addition to this. I just can't eat celery. You notice I cut my seasoning vegetables up a lot bigger because they will actually contribute to the veggie part of the veggie cacciatore as well. I'm going to stir that a few times, let that do its thing, and then I'll season it and put in the cabbage. Now I have put in my cabbage. This is how I cut it up, because I want it in little bitty short strips. Then I'm going to put in a can of my diced tomatoes, probably another half a cup of water, and put the lid on it and let it simmer for a while. Here is what it looks like when I have added in the cabbage and the tomatoes and about a half a cup of water, and now it's on simmer. I've mixed it together, and what I'm doing now with the vegetables is the vegetables that take the longest to cook, I put them in first. So if I were to make this dish with collards, that of course would go in first, even before the cabbage. The zucchini and the yellow squash, they're going to go in close to the end because they don't take that long to cook. And I always put my mushrooms in last because it only takes about maybe a little bit less than 10 minutes from the time I put the mushrooms in until the time that it's done. So I'm going to let this simmer for a while. This is what it's going to look like just before I put in my zucchini and my summer squash. Alright, I mixed in the zucchini and the summer squash. I did add another half cup of water because I do want some sauce with this. This is where that other can of diced tomatoes would have come in handy. Now I'm going to let this simmer for about maybe 10 more minutes before I pull out some to create a thickening agent. Alright, I have added the mushrooms, and I also took out 2 cups of the solution And I'm going to show you what I did with those in just a second. Let me put the top on this and I'll meet you at the blender. Alright, I took 2 cups of that solution. I put it in my blender. I also put in a few of the mushrooms, and look at the bottom. I also put about a half a cup of rice. That's my Instant Pot rice that I made the other day. And so I'm going to blend this stuff up together. This is what my thickening mixture is going to look like before I pour it in there. And this, you know, you can thicken just about anything you cook with the starch that you're using or just with the vegetables and the stock. Be right back. Alright, this is what it looks like when everything is mixed together. It is not as red as I usually like my cacciatore to look. That's where that other can of tomatoes would have come in handy. But I'm going to let this simmer now for about maybe 5, 6 or 7 minutes, and I will be back. Alright, it's done. It's got a peculiar color, but that's because I didn't have enough tomatoes, but it tastes really good. Let me get this in a bowl. Here is my fresh veggie cacciatore, and it tastes so good.